On August 9, 1930, Betty Boop would make her first appearance in Dizzy Dishes. Created by Fleischer Studios, Betty Boop was heavily inspired by the Jazz Age culture at the time. Upon her debut, Betty quickly became an overnight sensation and one of the first and most well-known animated sex symbols. At the time, when cartoons were mostly opening acts for a movie, Betty's popularity would bring people in just for her cartoon. While today, she isn't as big of an icon as she used to be, Betty's influence can still be seen, especially in anime and manga. Her large eyes influenced early manga artists and now can be seen in mostly all manga and anime characters today. In 1931, Stanley Morrison would make one of the most well-known serif typefaces to date. Morrison was a consultant for the Times, a famous newspaper in London. At the time, Morrison did not like the typeface that the Times newspaper was using, so much in fact that he even wrote an article in the newspaper talking about everything wrong with the typeface. The owner of the Times newspaper would eventually reach out to Morrison, commission him to make a new typeface. The goal of this typeface was to be easier to read, could fit more words on a page, and look professional, and that it did. Morrison would end up calling this typeface Times New Roman. At first, Times New Roman quickly gained popularity because it was more economical to print and reduce the amount of pages and large documents compared to other fonts at the time. 1932 saw the release of Flowers and Trees. This short film was Disney's first full-colored animated film using a new film process called Technicolor. While Technicolor had been around since 1916, it wasn't until 1932 that a new camera was developed that gave Technicolor its signature look. This camera would shoot through a prism that split the light into red, blue, and green negatives. These negatives were flipped into positive matrices that were then soaked in dyes of complementary colors. The red matrix turned to cyan, the blue into yellow, and the green into magenta. The dye would then be transferred and combined to make a colored image. Technicolor changed the movie industry. The process was reliable, the colors were vibrant, and it could be shown in theaters without special equipment. Because of this, Technicolor was used in many films from the 1930s up until the 1970s, examples of which include The Wizard of Oz, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and The Godfather. In 1933, Charles Darrow would create one of the most well-known board games to date, Monopoly. Darrow did not create Monopoly out of thin air, but rather got the idea from a very similar board game called The Landlord's Game, invented by Lizzie Magie. Monopoly was so similar, in fact, that when the Parker brothers bought the game's copyright from Darrow, they also had to buy Lizzie Magie's patent upon learning that Darrow wasn't the sole inventor. Today, Monopoly can be found in 114 countries, in 47 languages, with over 300 different versions to choose from. While most of these versions were meant to be for fun and learning, one of these sets was intended to save lives. This Monopoly set made in World War II incorporated hidden items into the board game, useful for captured British prisoners of war to escape, like a compass, map, money, and files.
It's all in the name of the game. All is fair in Monopoly.
1934 would see the debut of one of the most beloved animated characters of all time, Donald Duck. Voiced by Clarence Nash, Donald first appeared in Disney's The Wise Little Hen. While starting out as a supporting character, Donald Duck's outrageous temper would make him a fan favorite, and he would eventually get his own films like Don Donald. Donald would go through many design changes throughout the years, but in spite of the changes, his image was still instantly recognizable. While usually being the butt of other Disney characters' jokes, Donald's role would be switched from entertainment to propaganda during World War II. Donald was the star of Disney's wartime efforts. It could be seen in war films, recruitment ads, and war bonds. Donald's image could also be seen on unit insignias, which helped boost the morale of soldiers during the war, reminding them of home.
Starting around the 1910s, one of the most famous forms of graphic design was the early modern design. Early modern graphic design styles were geometrically based, minimalistic, had very clean typing, and used more photos than illustrations. However, in 1935, all of that changed, as many modernists believed that by rejecting the tradition and embracing the new technology they had discovered, that they could invent new ways of making art. making 1935 the end of the early modern graphic design style trend.
The bell in front of us was the official symbol of the Olympic Games in 1936 and originally hung in the bell tower. With the ringing of the bell on the first day, the Games were officially opened, and the bell also rung to end them on the last day during the closing ceremony.
This same bell was coincidentally used in the logo for the 1936 Olympics as well, which happened by complete accident. When Johannes Bolin started designing the logo for the Olympics, he originally was going to do a superimposed eagle and the Brandenburg Gate. However, as he started designing the logo, it gradually turned into the bell. In 1937, the Institute of Design at Illinois Tech was founded as the new Bauhaus by the Bauhaus master Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. I probably pronounced that wrong. And the Bauhaus had one mission: to create a new aesthetic appropriate for a modern industrial society. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was a breakthrough for animation and influenced graphic design in multiple ways. On top of its, at the time, great sound design and use of a multiplane camera, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was also the very first movie to ever use rotoscoping. They used this in order to animate Snow White's movements to help make her look more like a real woman, which involved filming a real actress doing the movements they wanted Snow White to do, and then projecting her image onto frosted glass, which then the animator traced.
And who might you be?
If you please, I am Dorothy.
With The Wizard of Oz not only becoming a major success once it hit televisions and homes, the movie also created what is called the Wizard of Oz method, which is a research technique that allows users to interact with a mock interface while the person behind the scenes controls the responses. Which the main objective behind this is to help real people learn what they can do to improve, in this case, movies, but can also be used to test theories and test user reactions and to narrow down problems as well.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
I'm not afraid of her. I'll see you reach the wizard.
See the wizard